Hello, welcome to a new episode of Geek Lunch Me. I'm your host Chris, as usual, and in this episode, we're going to be talking about all things Hellboy. Now, two reasons for this. One, a couple of weeks ago now, or maybe about a month ago now, they announced sort of out of the blue that they are doing a new Hellboy movie. I was going to do a video about the news, but they said that it starts filming sort of end of March, beginning of April. So I thought, well, they're obviously going to have to announce who's going to be playing Hellboy shortly. So I thought I'd wait until that was announced, which it has been. And then also, Mike Mignola, the creator of Hellboy, was on his social medias this week talking about how the week just gone was the 29th anniversary of the first proper Hellboy comic being published, which makes me feel old. That means I was 19 years old when I first picked up Seed of Destruction, issue 1 from the legendary Mondo Comics in Portsmouth. But yeah, so I thought we would take a look at the new Hellboy film and everything we know, details about it so far, and also take a quick look back at the history of Hellboy and how it all got started. If you like the video, don't forget, give it a thumbs up. Helps us out a great deal, helps the video get seen by a lot more people. And if you've not already subscribed, why not mash that subscribe button with your big red right hand, and that would really help us out a great deal. We would love to have you as part of the channel. Okay, so as I said, we'll look back at sort of the history of Hellboy and his beginnings. Now, although the first issue came out, the first proper issue came out in 1994, there were actually some appearances slightly before that. Back in 93, probably the first sort of actual appearance of Hellboy is on the cover of a Dime Press issue 4. It's quite rare. It used to go for about £1,000. The prices have dropped significantly. You can probably pick it up now if you can find one on eBay, probably for 150, 200 quid, depending on the condition. And yeah, basically Hellboy only appears on the cover in black and white, and it's a sort of a prototype. He does not look exactly how we've come to know and love him. Then his second appearance, also in 1993, was in this. It's San Diego Comic-Con Comics issue 2. Yes, this was just published as part of San Diego Comic-Con, and this has got a 4-page black and white story about Hellboy meeting a dog, which then turns into a giant dog monster demon thing, as these things tend to happen to Hellboy. And so yeah, that's sort of Hellboy's first proper comic book appearance, actual, in terms of story. And again, this used to go for about £1,000. It's dropped in price considerably since then. You can probably again pick one up. You're still going to be looking at about 100, 150 quid more if the condition is good. I don't even remember buying this. I must have again picked it up in Mondo Comics. Presumed I would have picked it up. Someone must have said that it had a 4-issue Hellboy story in it. So I'm quite lucky, quite glad to have that one. I believe the print run of these, I think there's only 1,500 printed. So yeah, if you can get hold of one, yeah, good luck with that. Then the first ever Hellboy appearance in colour is not in his own comic. It's in John Byrne's Next Men. I think it's issue 21. Yeah, issue 21, where he makes an appearance. Mike Mignola draws the pages where he appears there. Next Men was sort of John Byrne's take on doing his own version of X-Men, as the sort of title suggests, with sort of these mutant teenagers with superpowers. I have got that issue. I've got all of Next Men because I really enjoyed the series, but it's in a box somewhere upstairs in amongst all the comics. It's covered in stuff, and I couldn't actually find it. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Any rate, again, you can pick that up. It's not too expensive. You probably pick that up definitely for less than £100 easily. And then we come on to Seed of Destruction, issue 1, which is the first full Hellboy comic, which, as I say, came out in 1994. Got the backup story, Monkey Man of Brian by R. Adams, which is also good stuff. This is when they were publishing under the Legend imprint under Dark Horse Comics. Frank Miller as well had some, I think it's Sin City stuff was coming out under that. And Mike Mignola designed this Easter Island head sort of logo. There's this quite cool promotional sculpt based on his design, which I think, again, I've got to think Dan in Mondo Comics. I got that off him. Never ever seen one of these ever before. So yes, nice little collectible to have. Yeah, that's Siege of Destruction, being the first Hellboy series. There have been so many series and standalone issues and crossovers and one-shots and things. Since then, sort of the main storyline of Hellboy has sort of finished, but because obviously it spans, so he sort of comes to Earth in the 1940s. So yeah, we're going up to modern day. They keep going back and doing different series showing Hellboy during different periods of time. And these different cases with the BPRD, which is great. So moving on to the movies, back in 2004, we got Guillermo del Toro's Hellboy. This is the director's cut, unrated, got extra scenes in it. Definitely well worth picking up if you haven't got it already. It's great. Ron Perlman as Hellboy does a great job. I must admit, if you've read the comics, it's not massively accurate to the comics. The way Ron Perlman portrays Hellboy as a sort of very gruff. He's quite mean to everyone. I mean, he's mean. I mean, apart from Liz and Abe and Professor Broom, he's pretty much mean to everyone else. Very Ron Perlman. Sort of most of the characters he plays are like that. In the comic book, Hellboy isn't like that. He's still very much, even though he's been on Earth for since the 40s, he sort of ages at a different rate than us, and he's still very much a teenager. He's still almost wide-eyed and innocent in a lot of ways, completely different, I would say, to how Ron Perlman depicts him. He does a great job. The film is great. It's much more would say it's a Del Toro movie rather than a Mike Mignola story, but does a very good job of portraying Hellboy's origin, the Nazis performing a ritual with Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine fame, and it goes wrong, and Hellboy is brought forth and ends up being taken by Professor Broom and the BPRD, and it does do a good job. There are things I don't. I know that we've got the Agent Myers character. I know he is sort of the audience surrogate. He's introduced to the BPRD, and he's sort of he gets all the exposition explained to him. So say he is the audience member who's being told what's going on, and he sort of forms a love triangle. He really likes Liz, who obviously is having a sort of budding relationship with Hellboy. Hellboy takes instant dislike to him. I say he pretty much dislikes everyone in the movie. That aspect of it I'm not too keen on. I'm not surprised that then they got rid of him completely. Hellboy the Golden Army, the sequel, 2008, that came out. This is my favourite of the Hellboy movies. Again, it's even more of a Del Toro movie rather than a Mignola movie. By now, Del Toro is a very established actor, well on his way to winning the Oscar for The Shape of Water. Pan's Labyrinth we've had. He's got a very distinctive style. And Hellboy 2, Golden Army. His imagery and his style is all over it. The introduction of Johann Kraus is great. Again, Hellboy, Ron Perlman still portraying him as a miserable old sod. He doesn't like Johann when they first meet as well. So as much as I love the first two Hellboy movies, that's probably my one bugbear, that the portrayal of Hellboy is not as he is in the comics, unfortunately. Unfortunately, Del Toro never got to finish his sort of planned trilogy, and it was a few more years till, I think, what was it, 2019, that we got David Harbour taking on the mantle of Hellboy. Now, I recently rewatched this. I'd only watched it once. I rewatched it for the purposes of this video. I mean, I do some research. Hard to believe. I mean, I even got notes and everything. But I rewatched all three films. So the first two I've seen quite a few times. This I'd only seen once. I rewatched it to see, is it as bad as everyone makes out? I couldn't remember much about it, to be honest. And basically, it isn't a fantastic movie. It isn't as good, certainly not as good as the first two. That's certainly not David Harbour's fault. He actually does a really good job of portraying Hellboy. He's probably closer in tone to the comic books. Still not completely there. So there are some really nice bits in the film. The beginning bit, again, with they sort of show you his origin again, where the Nazis bring him through with Rasputin. We get Lobster Johnson, who's a fantastic character from the comics. I think it's Thomas Hayden Church who plays him, which is great to see. they've added him into the origin story. Then there is the sequence based on the Hellboy in Mexico comics, where he ends up in a Mexican wrestling with this giant vampire bat demon thing, which is great. That's straight out of the comics. So there is a lot to like. The main problem is that they've taken bits from the comics, so you sort of think, oh, okay, well, it's going to be more accurate. But you've got the Wild Hunt. I think so. And Darkness Calls. Some of the big events that happen in the comics, but they've just shoved them all together into a film without any of the backstory. You don't get the same epic sense, and say having none of the backstory, it just doesn't work. Nimue, played by Mila Jovovich, her character in the comics, bit of spoilers, so you close your ears if you don't want to hear. But she turns into this big dragon that Hellboy fights. They've got the storyline where Hellboy gets Excalibur, and it turns out that he is actually the rightful heir to be the king of England, which is straight out of the comics. He fights Nimue, but say in the comics she turns into a big sort of dragon. Hellboy kills her, and in doing so, he's also dragged down to hell with her. He dies as well, and I think the whole of England gets taken out and basically sinks into the sea. There's a really hard Brexit going on there, but you obviously you don't get any of that. They haven't got the budget for it, and then they do some funny things. Well, the whole tone of the film is the problem. It's like it's written by some edgy teenager. I love gratuitous swearing as much as the next man. I find it hilarious, but it just doesn't work, and it's just chucked in. Even with Professor Broom's narration at the beginning, he's immediately just straight off swearing, which is not Professor Broom's character at all. I mean, John Hurt's portrayal of him in the first two movies is absolutely spot on. He's this kindly, gentle old man who is Hellboy's surrogate, adopted father. Ian McShane played him, another great actor, but they just got him as again like a curmudgeonly old man who swears a lot. There is just so much gratuitous swearing chucked in throughout the film. It doesn't remember. He says computer generated blood flying everywhere, which again doesn't really fit in with the comics. And it's a real shame. They've taken the ideas from the comics, but then just really gone a strange tonal. The music is all like modern rock songs and stuff that doesn't really fit. You've got the Were Jaguar, is it Ben Dymo, with some strange English accent, which sometimes he's Cockney, sometimes he's like really posh. It just seems to be, sometimes his accent just goes completely. It's one of those films. It's a mess. There are some enjoyable bits in there, but just tonally, it's all over the place and wrong. So and I thought, that's pretty much killed off, the sort of Hellboy movies, and we probably weren't likely to get any more. But obviously, I was wrong, as they announced, as I say, about a month ago, that a new movie is coming, and it was going to film pretty shortly. So what they've announced is it's going to be based on the Crooked Man comics, which is this 3-issue series. Obviously written by Mike Mignola, illustrated by the legendary comic book artist Richard Corben. And this is going to be a complete change of style for the movies, because the Crooked Man is a much smaller story. I just recently reread this as well before I did this video. It's set in the late 1950s, so we've got a younger Hellboy. He's in the Appalachian Mountains. The BPRD aren't involved. It's just him there. And it's a story involving some witches and this Crooked Man who's like the devil, who and this other character who's with Hellboy has done has made a pact with him, and it's all very small, sort of more spooky Wicker Man, rural horror vibe to it, with lots of witchcraft and things like that. So obviously going to be made on a smaller budget, and such. They've gone for sort of lesser names. It's going to be directed by Brian Taylor, who did the Crank movies. I think it was Jason Statham, and the Ghost Rider sequel as well, which I must admit doesn't fill me with a great deal of confidence. But he was one of the showrunners on Happy, the adaptation, which you can see on Netflix, which is about this really messed up cop, and the fact that he can see imaginary friends, and it's actually brilliant. One of my favourites. There's 2 seasons, so absolutely brilliant if you've not seen it. The comic is good as well. The series I think is even better. They've done a really good job on that. Now, yeah, so if you can get more of that vibe to it, then yeah, then maybe this could turn out pretty good. Now, the guy they got playing Hellboy is Jack Kesey. He must admit he's not really been anything that I've seen. From his picture, though, I can see him with the makeup on playing a younger Hellboy. Hopefully, they do a good job. Remains to be seen, until we actually get to see some footage of what the makeup is going to look like. I think it's one of the problems. Mike Mignola's artwork is so stylized. Trying to get a realistic-looking Hellboy is difficult. I think bits of Ron Perlman's makeup nailed it, as did bits of David Harbour. There are bits in both that are really good and bits that I'm not as fond of. If they can maybe mash them together and come up with something, say for Jack Kesey, then hopefully we'll get a really good depiction of a younger Hellboy. Jefferson White is playing Tom Ferrell. Again, he's not really been anything that I've seen. Tom Ferrell is he's actually pretty much the main character in the comic. Is Hellboy actually is he's along for the ride as well. But Tom Ferrell is this guy who made a pact with the Crooked Man years ago when he was young, and has returned to this little town in the Appalachian Mountains to make amends for what the things that he's done in the past. And then the only other cast member we've got is Adeline Rudolph as playing Bobby Jo Song. No, she's not in the comics as far as I can see. There's a very small cast. You've got Hellboy as a Tom Ferrell, the Crooked Man himself, Cora the witch. There's some other witches, a priest, and a couple of townsfolk you see at the beginning. And that's it. So I don't know who this, say, Bobby Jo is. It's obviously going to be a new character. It might be one of the townsfolk. I'm assuming they're going to have to pad the story out. So it's a 3-issue story. You're going to have to pad it out to make it feel an hour and a half, 2-hour movie, whatever it is they go for. I wonder if maybe we'll see Hellboy at the BPRD, maybe at the beginning or at the end. Because say then you've got none of that Abe Sapien, Liz, Johan, none of the other BPRD agents are in it at all. So it'd be interesting to see if they add anyone in. So one of the best things about this new adaptation is it's going to be written by Mike Mignola and himself and Christopher Golden. Now he's an author in his own right and has written several Hellboy books already. Hellboy and the Lost Army was written by him, and The Bones of Giants is also by him. That was recently also adapted into a comic book series, which is well worth picking up. So yeah, so the fact that Mike Mignola is working on it and Christopher Golden as well bodes well for the story. It's not always the case that when sometimes you get a creator working on a script and obviously the finished product still isn't actually really what you want. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, so they're going for a smaller scale, obviously lower budget production. Hopefully they can get sort of stay true to some of the essence of the Hellboy comic. Now, I've always thought that Hellboy and the BPRD would make a great TV show, delving into sort of like different cases. You wouldn't always have to have Hellboy in it, and that's sort of what I wanted to see. And I'm wondering if this film does okay, that hopefully maybe they could use that as a pilot. And then I don't mind if it's Netflix, Amazon, Apple, HBO Max, whoever wants to fork out the money. A bit like the Dread movie with Carl Urban, and the long sort of awaited TV show that's never materialized, but they keep talking about using like the movie as a pilot to show that actually there's an interest in this and it can be done on a smaller budget. I'm sort of hoping that maybe this might lead into a Hellboy and the BPRD TV series, which they can then take all there's loads of different cases of Hellboy throughout the years. You could go back and do ones from the 50s and the 60s and then back up to modern times, and then pick up maybe if it does well, pick up the main sort of epic storyline that the Hellboy is foretold to be the beast of the apocalypse. He's going to bring about Ragnarok and the end of the world, which and how it all plays out in the comics. So yeah, I'm hopefully optimistic on this. Say the cast and crew involved are sort of a bit unknown quantities, so expectations are tempered a bit. But say with Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden involved, and the fact it is looking to be more of a low-key, lower budget production, then hopefully something good will come of this. Are you a Hellboy fan? If so, let me know what you think about the new movie. Drop us a comment below. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Until next time, take care, eat geek, and be merry.